पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। पाद की जय, गुरुदेव महाराज की जय, की जय, जय जय श्री राधे श्याम। Hare Krishna. My humble and respected obeisances to all the assembled devotees here on Zoom and or everyone watching live on YouTube. Please accept my humble. Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, everyone. Hare Hare. Right. So we've been doing Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the chapter 11. We are going to, I will start from verse 31st. Let's have Chaitanya Charitamrita. Pranam mantra. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Shri Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jai. Hare Krishna. So in chapter 11, the first 7 verses, they are the ones where we usually pay obeisances. So the first 7 verses are just for obeisances, where we get, for the author in this scenario, get the blessings and the best wishes from everyone. And then from verse 8 to 61, there are 61 verses in this chapter. So from verse 8 to 61, they are branches of Shri Nityananda. So we have already covered until verse 30, and that covers 15 verses of 15 branches of Shri Nityananda. I'm going to share my screen now. Prabhuji, could you please confirm you can see the screen? Very well. Thank you so much. Now, Srila Prabhupada has given such a nice purport to wherever required, to most of them, that hardly any work required for anyone. So most of the time, we will go through and we will read and discuss the purpose. So even though it says my name for today's session, but feel free to chip in wherever you think I might request you to join me as well, because that's the whole idea, that we share the wisdom of Chaitanya Charitamrita together. It should not be just one way. It should be all together from everyone. So verse 31, now as you would know, my recitation is not great, but we'll try my best. So please, I always say, especially to one of the Mataji who is Bengali, when I was there in Madhya Pradesh, I always used to say, Mataji, it's because I'm from North India, from Delhi. And if anybody come from somewhere else, and especially when I came down here in London many years back, then if somebody will speak Hindi in a different accent, it's very bizarre and it sounds very funny as well. And it distracts a lot of time what the true meaning of the discussion, the context is. So a similar thing happens when I recite Sanskrit or Bengali. So I used to always request Mataji to forgive me, because it will be, and it used to be because she used to laugh a lot. But let's ignore that, overcome that. Let's just focus on the meaning of the verses. So the very first one, verse 31, which we can see, and feel free to unmute yourself if you like to join or if you could recite with yourself muted, feel free, whichever way is much more comfortable. So it says, verse 31, Nityananda Priya Bhrata Pandita Dhananjaya Atyanta Virakta Sadha Krishna Prema Maya. Translation and purport by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Prabhupada Ki Jai. The 16th dear servant of Nityananda Prabhu was Dhananjaya Pandit. He was very much renowned and always merged in love of Krishna. Now there's a big purport, but it's worth reading the purport. I couldn't say in my own words, but the words which Srila Prabhupada has written, they are unmatchable. I don't think anybody could do justice to them. So let's read the purport. I'm going to read it. So it says, Srila Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, Pandit Dhananjaya was a resident of the village in Katwa named Sitla. Now, when I started reading the very first time, I had not visited West Bengal then. Later on, by the mercy of Guruji and all Vaishnavas, I did visit Mayapur, but still there are so many places there. And it excites me, especially those who are from that area, because these places, they still exist. Unlike any other scripture, especially like Bhagavatam, when we read, Namishwaran is there, but many other places, they might not be so evident. But here in Chaitanya Charita, with so many different places are there. So all those devotees who've been there, who are from there, feel like they're so blessed. So I feel like I miss out. But it says, the resident of village in Katwa named Sitala. He was one of the 12 Gopals. So now we have 12 Gopals, and there's a link I could share where all the 12 Gopals are listed, and we will hear and read a lot of them here in the chapter as well. His former name, according to Gaura Ganodesha Deepika 127, was Vasudama. Sitala Grama is situated near the Mangalalokta police station and Kaichara police station in the district of Budwan. On the narrow railway from Budwan to Katwa is a railway station about 9 miles from Katwa known as Kaichara. One has to go about a mile northeast of this station to reach Sitala. The temple was a thatched house with walls made of dirt. Some time ago, the Jamidar of Bajarava Kabashi, the Muliks, constructed a big house for the purpose of a temple. But for last 65 years, the temple has been broken down and abandoned. The foundation of the old temple is still visible. There is a Tulsi pillar near the temple, and every year during the month of Kartika, October, November, the disappearance day of Dhananjaya is observed. It is said that for some time, Pandit Dhananjaya was in Sankirtan party under the direction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he went to Vrindavan. Before going to Vrindavan, he lived for some time in a village named Sancha Panchada, which is 6 miles south of Memari railway station. Sometimes this village is also known as the place of Dhananjaya Pata. After some time, he left the responsibility for worship to the disciple and went back to Vrindavan. After returning from Vrindavan to Sitla Grama, he established a deity of Gaura Sundara in the temple. The descendants of Pandita Dhananjaya still live in the Sitala Grama and look after the temple worship. Hare Krishna. So good to see. Few things which comes to mind when I read that the disciples, so they are the direct branches of course, these are the direct Gopa, one of the 12 Gopas, but also they have disciples and their descendants are still there, and they established the deities. So many of those branches of Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji and Nityananda, many of them been mentioned in different scriptures that they had their own deities, which they established and they worship in their local place. And then descendants of those are still there, which is amazing. Again, if we are blessed enough that we could go. And this is one of those things, many the senior Vaishnavas, they say, when we go and we visit all these dhammas, then what's the purpose behind? The purpose is just to take darshan, prashadam, and move away. But much more higher than that is to take the association of all the devotees. And when we go with someone, we meet someone there who knows the significance of the place, then it's much, much, much more impactful in our own Krishna consciousness. So this is great to hear from all these different disciples of either direct Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji or Nityanandaji, or from their direct disciples. Great. Let's move on to text 32. If there is anything on any of those verses, then please feel free, raise it now. We don't have to wait until end. Raise your virtual hand, say something on chat, or feel free just to unmute yourself and speak out loud. So whichever way is much more comfortable. Rather than one way, let's keep it engaging. That's much, much better. Text 32. Mahesha Pandita Vrajera Udara Gopala Daka Vadera Nitya Kare Prema Matoyala. Hare Krishna. Translation. Mahesha Pandit, the 7th of the 12 Gopals, was very liberal. In great love of Krishna, he danced to the beating of a kettle drum like a madman. Now this word liberal is a great, if you think about it, why this word has been used. I do some public speaking, and once I used this, Nitin and Narasimha Prabhuji knows very well which platform I'm mentioning. And once I used this word liberal for my wife, that my wife is very liberal. And of course, I had the whole script which I followed. And then one of the evaluator, one of the person who gave me the feedback, really liked this word, liberal. So when I was reading this, then that memory came back in. And the reason, and if you read the second line, then we understand that what liberal could be. It says, in great love of Krishna, he danced to the beating of kettle drum like a madman. So liberal is someone who's free. Liberal is someone who could do whatever he wants to do. Now, a lot of times, devotees like me, I was about to say us, but that might offend some of you. So devotees like me, I would like to do something. I would like to dance. Maybe when I will go to the town center, the city center, or just out of the temple, I would like to dance. But I have so many hesitations, so much that what people will think about me. But this madness is not the material madness, what comes because of that hesitation. But this madness is that spiritual madness, which if we get it, then that's, I guess, is what the purpose, the goal, the aim and objective of whole Krishna consciousness is, what says to achieve Krishna Prema. And many of the devotees, they have achieved it, and we have seen them. And many of the Vaishnav songs, they have said it, that Krishna, when I will get that ecstasy, when goosebumps will come, when I will just walk and dance with your name like a madman or mad person. So liberal, just because the person, the devotee, could dance like that mad man. The purport, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in Anubhashya, the village of Mahesha Pandit, which is known as Palapada, is situated in the district of Nadia, within a forest about 1 mile south of Chakadaha railway station. The Ganges flows nearby. It is said that formerly Mahesha Pandita lived on the eastern side of Jirat in the village known as Mahisapura or Yashipura. And when Mahisapura merged into the riverbed of the Ganges, the deities there were brought to Palapada, which is situated in the midst of various villages such as Baladanga, Barigrama, Sukashgrana, Chandudu, and Manasapota. There are about 14 villages, and the entire neighborhood is known as Panchagrana Paragana. It is mentioned that Mahesha Pandit joined the festival performed by Shri Nityananda Prabhu at Panihati. Narottam Dasa Thakur also joined in the festival, and Mahesha Pandita saw him on that occasion. In the temple of Mahesha Pandit, there are deities of Gaurnitai, Nityananda, Shri Gopinatha, Shri Madan Mohan, and Radha Govinda, as well as Saligram Sriva. Hare Krishna. So again, so many different names. Those who are blessed enough to be associated or to be born in those areas would definitely recognize these places. And when I read it, I was also Googling all these, how far they are, especially when the railway stations and all mentioned. And I really felt blissful that these places are there, that maybe next time when I would go to Mayapur, then I could go, I could travel, which we did, but that was just nearby, not those far away places. But maybe next time when we go, then we should take time out to visit these places. And then our meditation, when we will read the Chaitanya Charitamrita again, that meditation will be definitely of an enhanced level. I would think so. Anybody would like to add any point on this verse? Anyone been there? Anyone knows about Mahesha Panditji? Anything? No? If not, let's move on. So verse 33, text 33. Navadvipa Purushottama Pandita Mahashay Nityananda Name Yara Mahamadihaya. Translation: Purushottam Pandit, a resident of Navdeepa, was the 8th Gopala. So out of 12, 8th Gopala. He would become almost mad as soon as he heard the holy name of Nityananda Prabhu. Now another spiritual madness. And certainly we would be lucky if we could get even a gist of it. It is stated in Chaitanya Bhagavata that Purushottama Pandita was born in Navdeep and was a great devotee of Lord Nityananda Prabhu as one of the 12 Gopals. His former name was Stoka Krishna. And Purushottama Pandit's reference will come back again later when we will read Adilila, I think, Adilila chapter 9. So we will read that again. In text 34. Balarama Dasa Krishna Prema Rasavadi Nityananda Name Hai Paramunamadi. Translation: Balarama Dasa always fully tasted the nectar of Lord Krishna. Upon hearing the name of Nityananda Prabhu, he would become greatly maddened. So madness, the spiritual madness continues. Balarama Dasa, and I could not, because there is no purport there. So I tried finding a bit more about Balarama Dasa on Wikipedia. And luckily enough, I found something. And if I will say a few things from there, or maybe I can share. Hopefully you can still see that. So again, very local to Puri. And Prabhuji last week said Prabhuji is from Puri. And I met someone who was Puri last Saturday. So maybe it will be much more evident who Balarama Dasa was. So Balarama Dasa was an Udiya poet and literature. So full of literature. He was one of the 5 great poets in Udiya literature, the Panchashakha, during the Bhakti age of literature. He was the eldest of Panchashakha. He wrote Jaga Mohana Ramayana, also known as Dandi Ramayana. So another great devotee of Lord Rama, but also the great branch of Nityananda. I hope he is the same Balrama Dasa being referred here. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. As I said, I could not find any more information, but there. And it resides with the theme, what we say. So it looks like this is what it is, but feel free if anyone knows him, have read about him from any lectures or from Guru Maharaj maybe. If not, then let's continue. Let's move on to the next one. And it says, text 5, verse 5.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
So are you talking of Balaram Das from Puri? Is he same Balaram Das, the follower of Nityananda Prabhu?
Prabhuji, I'm not sure, but when I did the search, then that's the only one I managed to get it. Now you're from Orissa. So if you know this poet and if you think he's not, because it says he wrote for he was from Lord Ram's time, or the association was much more there. But then again, Lord Nityananda, he also used to do, like in one of other verses will come about Purushottam Dasa, when he used to do the childhood enacts. So maybe he was the same, but I'm not sure. Have you heard of anything that?
I know about Balaram Das, who was from Puri, but I'm in doubt whether his same Balaram Das is mentioned here.
I'm not sure entirely, Prabhuji, either. So maybe a bit more of research is required. But when I did a quick research, then he was the only one who came up, who was very prominent. And I read somewhere else also that he was linked to Nityananda, but didn't say somewhere else that he was the direct, like the one in Odisha and the one here. Didn't say anywhere, but he's the only one I could find. So that's the reason I thought to mention, but it's with the caution and caveat. But I'm not sure, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So if time permits, I can tell something about Balaram Das. He was a great devotee of Jagannath, Lord Jagannath. Okay, thank
Please,
you.
Prabhuji. Yes, by all means, go for it.
Not now, Prabhu. So it will be maybe at the end of the class. Not now, Prabhu. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Right. So there's no purport. Oh, there's a bit of purport. So yeah, text 35. So the purport in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Madhya Kanda, chapter 1, it is stated that a gentleman known as Ratna Garbha Acharya was a friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father. They had been residents of the same village. Ratna Garbha Acharya had 3 sons, Krishna and Jiva, and sorry, did I move on? All right, I just recited that word. My apologies. So let's recite that verse again. Text 35. Mahabhagavata. Sorry. Okay, yes, yeah, go on. Mahabhagavata Yadunanta Kavi Chandra Yanahara Hirdaya Nitya Kare Nityananda. Translation. Yadunatha Kavi Chandra was a great devotee. Lord Nityananda Prabhu always danced in his heart. Lord Nityananda Prabhu always danced in his heart. Purport. In the Chaitanya Bhagavad, Madhya Khanda, chapter 1, it is said that a gentleman known as Ratna Garbha Acharya was a friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father. They had been residents of the same village. Ratna Garbha Acharya had 3 sons, Krishnananda, Jiva, and Yadu, Kavi Chandra. So that's another thing, that it's not, so the devotees, the branches of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, they are not, well, sometimes they are, but a lot more, they are not standalone. They come from those Vaishnava families, and they are not just themselves associated, but the whole family is initiated. Like in this example, like we see many other examples as well. like Purushottam Das, we read, and his father as well, and his grandfather, they all very similar, very, very, very similar. So now what it doesn't mention here, and sometimes in between the sequence is lost but not broken. So it doesn't say that this is the 20th branch, but this verse 35 mentions the 20th branch. And how do we know? When we move on to the next verse, then it says the 21st devotee, 21st branch of it. So that's another thing. Sometimes it's confusing if you just read or pick the verses in between. But when we read from the context, then it gets very clear to us. So Yadunatha Kavi Chandra, and the way it says Kavi Chandra must have been a poet, and there have been many poets. Either the poets become devotees or devotees become poets, and then sometimes they get the names as well. So text 36, verse 36, Radhe Yantra Janma Krishna Dase Dvija Rava Shri Nityanandera Tenu Parma Kinakara. Translation: the 21st devotee of Shri Nityananda in Bengal was Krishna Dasa Brahmana, who was first class servant of the Lord. Who was first class servant of the Lord. Now, usually when we discuss the servant, and this is one of those things, anyone who is not from the parampara and very first time get the exposure to Gaura, well, let's say SCOM, because that's widely known. The very first time when we hear this word servant, that really upsets people. I know it upset me when very first time I heard it. Servant, you want me to become the servant? And those days, especially when you are in places like in Delhi, you have servants working for you. In London, we call them domestic help rather than servant. So even if somebody is working in Middle East, I think we call them maids. So when somebody like them working for you, and even though you come from a good family, you treat them well. But when somebody will say, you have to become the servant of the Lord, you are the servant of the Lord, and this is the eternal relationship you have. Well, I don't know about you, but certainly it doesn't go very well, especially in the beginning. Even now sometimes, but especially in the beginning. And it takes a while if you introduce this word to somebody who is very new. It takes a while to sink in. But then if you add the adjective there, that who was a first class servant, so even being the servant, and we have seen this, like especially in Goloka chart, we discussed that we have Krishna is there, then Radhaji is there, and there are gopis who are like Ashtasakhis, they are assisting Radhaji, but then there are Manjuris who are assisting not directly Radhaji, they are assisting the Ashtasakhis. So, and they are happy with that. So there could be different levels of the service. And then again, when we start serving, we see that. Certainly, a lot of devotees are serving, but some we realize, some nobody needs to say anything. People realize, like from London, Sutapa Prabhuji is there. He's great. Whichever platform he comes on, and so many. One of the courses he designed, I delivered. And somebody said, oh, it's a great course. I said, all the glories goes to Sutapa Prabhuji. Imagine something he designed, and I'm just delivering. Now, how great it was when he would deliver that course himself, which he did very first time. Hare Krishna. I've just read the message, which has come to me directly. The message says that my voice is very low and breaking. Is it same for everyone, or you could hear me?
No, Prabhuji.
Right, you can increase the volume, Prabhu.
Okay, great, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for letting me know.
It is very clear, Prabhu, sound.
It's very clear. Haribo. So I will try to speak a bit louder. Or yeah. Otherwise, I will try to get the mic. As I said, my other monitor where I usually sit doesn't work. Well, didn't work this morning. So not sure what happened there. Must be I accepted that as I have two of those monitors, one downstairs, one upstairs. None of them connected to my laptop the way it usually do. So I accepted that as Krishna Leela. And I thought, okay, let's go with that. That's why you might see I'm directly on my laptop, so my camera is very funny. But I will try to speak a bit louder. So hopefully devotees who can't hear, or who couldn't hear so far would hear now. So, right, the 21st, have you read that? Yes. The 21st devotee of Sri Nityananda in Bengal was Krishna Dasa Brahmana, who was a first-class servant of the Lord. And this has been mentioned in Adilila as well, Krishna Dasa Brahmana. I think in chapter 9, again, I think later on, around 200 verses, again, we will hear a lot more about Krishna Dasa Brahmana. Guru Maharaj ji has written a book, well, a lot of books, but one of beautiful books is Gauranga, and I got that book here next to me, Gauranga. And in that book, Guru Maharaj ji has mentioned a few things about Krishna Dasa Brahmana as well, but we will read it again in Madhya Leela, chapter 9. The purport. In this verse, the word Radhe refers to Radha Desh, the part of Bengal where the Ganges does not flow. Now, if you've been to West Bengal, Kolkata, Navdeep, Mayapur, you would know that the Ganges are there, but Radha Desh is a part where Ganges does not flow. So I'm not sure, I'm not entirely sure which area that is. If any devotee from that area would like to enlighten us, shed more light on it, please let us know. Otherwise, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure which part of Bengal this Radha Desh has been referred here. But it mentions that Radha Desh has been mentioned, which is part of the Bengal. So moving on to...
I think, Prabhu, it is East Bengal.
Is it East?
Somewhere it was mentioned the East Bengal is called Radha Desh, where the Ganges, does not flow.
Yes, Haribol. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Yes, from the map, so we could see that Ganges seems to be on the west, but east side Ganges, yeah, Ganges is not there. So maybe the entire area, maybe the part of the area, quite possible. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Haribol. So rather the issue could be the East Bengal in compared to the West Bengal where the Ganges are, where the Navdeep is, or where the Mayapur is. Right, great. Moving on to verse 37. Kala Krishna Dasa Bhare Vaishnava Pradhana Nityananda Chandra Vinu Nahi Jane Ana. Translation. The 22nd devotee of Lord Nityananda Prabhu was Kala Krishna Dasa, who was the 9th cowherd boy, so Gopala out of 12. He was a first-class Vaishnava and did not know anything beyond Nityananda Prabhu. Now it's been mentioned some of the Gopalas, some of the branches, some of the devotees, they've been in direct association of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji as well. And some of them, they used to, Nityananda Prabhuji himself used to do Ram Leela, as we call, as well, in the childhood. But some of the devotees, like here been mentioned, that Kala Krishna Dasa, they didn't know anything about Nityananda Prabhu. So sometimes it happens that you don't really need to know beyond where your full surrender is. Until unless, of course, whom you are fully surrender, that person will suggest you to move on. And this comes with the reference of demigods. And this point is really great for preaching for someone who follows, who is very much associated and attached to one particular demigod. It could be because of the family, it could be because of the personal past experience. But then, rather than giving all the philosophy about the demigods versus Krishna, sometimes it's good if we just stress that let's read a bit more about demigods. Let's hear from the demigod as per the Shastras that whom that demigod is leading us to. And then I've realized, with my personal realization, that devotees, even though they are new, after a while, because you don't say that you are doing something wrong. If you go, obviously going to say that, then it's going to go down not so well. But if you say, okay, that's great if you pray to these demigods or this particular demigod, how about let's read a bit more about that demigod? How about let's understand a bit more about this demigod, whom this demigod is praying, all these powers this demigod has, from where this demigod is getting those powers. And then the connection. It's not like we are misleading, or we don't say that you are misled, but we say, let's try to get a bit more wider perspective. So you did not know anything beyond Nityananda. Maybe at that time was not required. Purport. In the Gaur Ganodesha Dipika 132, it is said that Kala Krishna Dasa, who was also known as Kaliya Krishna Dasa, was formerly a Gopa, cowherd boy, of the name Lavanga. He was one of the 12 cowherd boys. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, Kaliya Krishna Dasa had his headquarters in a village named Akhai Hata, which is situated in the district of Budwan, within the jurisdiction of the post office and the police station of Katwa. It is situated on the road to Navdeepa. To reach Akhai Hata, one has to go from the Badel Junction station to the Katwa railway station and then go about 2 miles, or one has to get off at the Dhanheta station and from there go 1 mile. The village of Akhai Hata is very small. In the month of Chaitra, on the day of Varuni, there is a festival commemorating the disappearance day of Kala Krishna Dasa. Hare Krishna. Now, I remember Bhakti Rasa with Swami Maharaj when he was here at the manor, at Bhakti Vedanta Manor. He took us to South Indian trip where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to, or he went. Then while sitting, and it was all lecture, it was not even virtual. It was there in the lecture, but he had a presentation with him. And the beauty is like what Srila Prabhupada has done here, that given even the miles and given the directions, and somebody like myself, when I went on the Google and I was looking for these places, I really felt that I'm visiting these places. And some of those cases, you could even have the deities darshan, because the pictures being posted as well. And then I think a bit more realization or bit of connection comes in. And that's what I felt like, maybe. So when we just read it, if we do a bit more research, then it's much better. And that's the beauty. When we come along and we kind of do the discussion rather than one way. So when we do the discussion, then maybe one devotee wouldn't know everything. But when all the devotees, they put together their realization, their thoughts, then it's much better. Then it's much, much, much better. And that should be the idea, hopefully, going forward. So verse 38, Shri Sada Shiva Kavi Raja Bada Mahashaya Shri Purushottama Dasha Tana Hare Tanya. Translation: the 23rd and 24th prominent devotees of Nityananda Prabhu were Sadashiva Kavi Raja and his son Purushottama Dasa, who was the 10th Gopala. So they were father and son, and Purushottama Dasa was the 10th Gopala out of 12. And Purushottama Dasa's grandfather was also very prominent. Now it said, oh, the purport is there. Let's read in the purport. Maybe I'm just about to say, oh no, purport is not there for 38. Oh well, let's read the 39, because 39 is also about Purushottama Dasa, and the purport is there. So we'll give more information on it. And what does that say? It says, all right, let's read it. Ajanma nimagna nityananda dera charana nirantara balaya lila kare Krishna sana. From birth, Purushottama Dasa was merged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and he always engaged in childish play with Lord Krishna. Nitya Andera Charana. Purport: Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in Anubhashya, Sadashiv Kaviraj and Nagara Purushottama, who were father and son, are described in Chaitanya Bhagavata as Mahabhagavata, greatly fortunate. They belong to the Vedya caste of physicians. Text 156 of Gaura Ganodesha Dipika says that Chandravali, a most beloved gopi of Krishna's, later took birth as Sadashiva Kaviraj. So Sadashiva Kaviraj, father of Purushottama Dasa, was the gopi, Chandravali gopi, out of Ashtasaki. In text 194 and 200, it is said that Kamsari Sena, the father of Sadashiva, so grandfather of Purushottama Dasa, was formerly the gopi named Ratnavali in Krishna's pastime. So Ratnavali was the grandfather, and Chandravali was the father of the Purushottama Dasa. All the family members of the Sadashiv Kaviraja were great devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purushottama Das Thakur sometimes lived at Sukhasagara near the Chakadaha and Simurali railway station. All the deities installed by Purushottama Thakur were formerly situated in Beledanga Grama. But when the temple was destroyed, the deities were brought to Sukhasagara. When the temple merged into the bed of Ganges, the deities were brought with Jahanava Mata's deity to Sahe the Banga, Devi Grama, Bedi Grama. Since that place also has been destroyed, all the deities are now situated in the village named Chadua Grama, which is situated 1 mile up from Palapada, as referred to above. So family of physicians, and what a great family. Purushottama Dasa, and then Shri Sadashiva Kaviraj, and then his father as well. And then they were direct gopis in Krishna Lila. I can't think of getting any better in devotional service than that. And that's been described very nicely here in the childhood. And in let's move forward maybe. Yeah, we still have some time, so let's move forward. Text 40, verse 40. Tanara putra Mahashaya Shri Kanu Thakura Yanara Dehi Rahe Krishna Prema Mrita Pura. Translation: Shri Kanu Thakura, a very respectable gentleman, was the son of Purushottama Dasa Thakur. He was such a great devotee that Lord Krishna always lived in his body. So we read, it says Lord Nityananda was dancing in the heart. We have read that devotees went mad. They were dancing in madness. They were in madness, the spiritual madness. And now following on the parampara, the Vaishnava families, even Purushottama Dasa's son was also there. So generations after generations, the devotees are there. And the purport is there. And maybe, all right, let's go for the purport. Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, to go to the headquarters of Kanu Thakura, one has to proceed by boat from Jikhara Ghata station to the river known as Kapotaksha. Otherwise, if one goes about 2 or 2.5 miles from the Jikhara Ghata station, he can see Bodha Khana, the headquarters of Kanu Thakur. The son of Sadashiva was Purushottama Thakur and his son was Kanu Thakura. The descendants of Kanu Thakura now know him as Nagara Purushottama. He was the cowherd boy named Dama during Krishna Lila. It is said that just after the birth of Kanu Thakura, his mother Janva died. When he was about 12 days old, Shri Nityananda Prabhu took him to his home at Kandahar. It is ascertained that Kanu Thakura was born sometime in the Bengal year 94D. That's AD 1535. It is said that he took birth on the Rath Yatra day. Because he was a great devotee of Lord Krishna from very beginning of his life, Shri Nityananda Prabhu gave him the name Shishu Krishnadasa. When he was 5 years old, he went to Vrindavana with Janva Mata. And Goswamis, upon seeing the ecstatic symptoms of Kanu Thakura, gave him the name Kanaya Thakur. So the same devotees, a lot of time goes by different names, a lot of times. And if we have read Coming Home by Radhanath Swamiji Maharaj, even before he had the name Radhanath Swamiji Maharaj, he had been given different names because he was part of different spiritual groups. So very similar used to happen even in those days, that devotees used to get different names as being described here. In the family of Kanu Thakura, there is Radha Krishna deity known as Pranavalabha. It is said that his family worshipped this deity long before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, his associates, Lord Nityananda Prabhuji's associates, they all came down as well. When there was a Maharashtrian invasion of Bengal, Maharashtrian invasion of Bengal, the family of Kanu Thakura was scattered. And after the invasion, one Hari Krishna Goswami of that family came back to their original home, Bodhakhana, and re-established the Prana Vallabha deity. The descendants of the family still engage in the service of Prana Vallabha. Kanu Thakura was present during the Khetri Utsav, when Janva Devi and Veerabhadra Goswami were also present. One of the Kanu Thakura's family members, Madhvacharya, married the daughter of Shri Nityananda Prabhu, who was named Ganga Devi. Both Purushottama Thakur and Kanu Thakura had many disciples from Brahmana families. Most of the disciple descendants of Kanu Thakura now reside in the village named Garabeta by the river Silavati in the Midhanapura district. Hare Krishna. So great description there. The descendants and the disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhuji, and those deities. Of course, as I said in the previous verse, that the Ganges used to come along. And I remember in my childhood as well, because we used to live at the banks of, not Ganges, but Yamuna, being in Delhi. And a lot of time, water used to come on this side, in the houses. Never happened in my living memory, but the ancestors, our elders, they used to narrate the story. And then obviously by then the infrastructure was much better. But this used to happen apparently there as well. Of course, wherever the Ganges there, based on the monsoon, it used to come along. And then the deities used to move around. And a lot of time deities used to come together as well. So rather than three different scattered devotees who used to worship different deities, now maybe we will be able to find them together at one place, which if you think about, is a great blessings. So now when we go on yatras, when we had to, if you go 500 years back, we had to go to the three different places. But now it's such a blessing that at one place we can have the darshan. And of course, the past times of all those deities and the associated devotees at the same place, which is a great blessing. When, especially in Kali Yuga, we have very limited time. And if you want to get associated with all of them. Right. Okay, next verse, which has a big purport, but maybe we consider that verse as the last verse for today, and then we will have some realization on that. Anything we have discussed so far, anyone would like to add anything to it? Any of those devotees, any of those deities? Personally, I haven't been so lucky or blessed to have the darshans. As I said, I've only been to Mayapur once. I have only read about these, or now and then when the lectures come along, then hear about those. So some of those places and some of those deities, some of those devotees might be familiar, but again, I never had any direct association in a sense of those deities or those places. But by all means, there are many senior devotees here. If anyone would like to add any reflections, either personal or borrowed, because we attend a lot of lectures, then feel free to share. Right? Okay. No, then let's move on to the next verse, which we will consider as the last verse for today, maybe, and then we'll work towards it. So verse 41, it says, Mahabhagavata Sreshta Data Udharana Sarva Bhave Seve Nityanandre Charanana. Translation: Udharana Datta Thakur, the 11th among the 12 cowherd boys, was an exalted devotee of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. He worshipped the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda in all respects. In all respects. Let's have the purport written by Srila Prabhupada ji, which covers a lot of details. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, the Gaur Ganodesha Deepika 129 states that Udharana Datta Thakura was formerly the cowherd boy of Vrindavana named Subhahu. Now, in Krishna Leela, we might have heard of Subhahu. I think even the little Krishna, Kids Watch, I think even there we have a Gopala who named Subhahu. Udharana Datta Thakur, previously known as Shri Udharana Datta, was a resident of Saptagrama, which is situated on the bank of the Saraswati River near Trishbhanga railway station in the district of Hooghly. At the name of Udharana Thakur, Saptagrama was a very big town encompassing many other places such as Vasudevapura, Vanshabhidya, Krishnapura, Nityanandapura, Sivapura, Shankha Nagara, and Saptagrama. Calcutta was developed under British rule by the influential mercantile community and especially by Suvarna Vanik community. Suvarna Vanik community who came down from Saptagrama to establish their businesses and homes all over Calcutta. They were known as Saptagrami mercantile community of Calcutta, and most of them belonged to the Mullik and Sil families. More than half of Calcutta belonged to this community, as did Srila Udharana Thakur. Our parental family also came from this district and belonged to the same community. Now, this, I believe, is, if we know this Suravana Vanik, this is mercantile, as it says. So we still have those communities which are really great doing businesses and enterprises. Our beloved Srila Prabhupada ji used to belong to the same community as well. And that's also, I think he mentioned it somewhere, or we read it somewhere as well. So the Mulliks of Calcutta are divided into two families, namely the Sil family and the Day family. Now, Day family is very famous. Day family, I think, is where Srila Prabhupada ji used to belong to. All the Mulliks of the Day family originally belonged to the same family and Gotra. We also formally belong to the branch of the Day family, whose members intimately connected with the Muslim rulers received the title Mullik. So these are, again, different titles given by different group of people who visited India, if I say, rather than invaders, because they got a lot out of us and they gave us a bit as well. In the Chaitanya Bhagavatam, Antya Khanda, chapter 5, it is said that Udharana Datta was an extremely elevated and liberal Vaishnava. He was born with the right to worship Nityananda Prabhu. Now this is, I was listening to one lecture and one of the Prabhuji, and that Prabhuji, I forgot his name, Prabhuji and Mataji, they have visited and they have delivered a session in our study group. And one of the lecture I was listening from them. So Prabhuji said that this sentence is very profound. Reason being that it says he was born with the right to worship. And what that reflects is that, as we read, that these devotees, these branches, they had arrangements before. So they were not just here materially, they were there in the spiritual world as well, and they came down here just because they could. And so they could take part in the Leela, in the Chaitanya Leela. Hare Krishna. Right. So moving on, it is also stated that Nityananda Prabhu, after staying for some time in Khadaha, came to Saptagrama and stayed in the house of Udharna Datta. The Survan Vanik community to which Udharna Datta belonged was actually a Vaishnav community. So business people. Its members were bankers and gold merchants. Survana means Survana, Swarna means gold, and Vanik means merchant. Long ago, there was a misunderstanding between Balal Sen and Survana Vanik community because of the great banker Gauri Sena. Balal Sena was taking loans from Gauri Sena and spending money extravagantly, wasteful, for sense gratification. And therefore, Gauri Sena stopped supplying money. Balal Sena took revenge by instigating a social conspiracy to make the Survana Vaniks outcasts. And since then, they have been ostracized from the higher caste, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and Vaishnavas. But by the grace of Srila Nityananda Prabhu, the Surnik Vanik community was again elevated. It is said in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Yateka Vanik Kula Udharna Heite Pavitra He Leela Dvedha Nakhila Ihata. There is no doubt that all the community members of the Surna Vanik society were again purified by Shri Nityananda Prabhu. In Saptagrama, there is still a temple with a six-armed deity of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that was personally worshipped by Srila Udharna Datta Thakur. On the right side of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a deity of Shri Nityananda Prabhu. And on the left side is Gadadhar Prabhu. There are also a Radha Govinda Murti and a Saligrama Sila. And below the throne is a picture of Shri Udharna Datta Thakur. In the front of the temple, there is now a big hall, and in the front of the hall is Madhvi Lata plant. The temple is in very shady, cool, and nicely situated location. When we returned from America in 1967, the executive committee members of this temple invited us to visit it. And thus we had the opportunity to visit this temple with some American students, formerly in our childhood. We visited this temple with our parents because all the members of Surna Vanik community enthusiastically take interest in this temple of Udharna Datta Thakur. So Prabhuji mentions, Prabhupada mentions we, referring to himself and all devotees along with him at that time. Of course, very personally that we belong to that community, and Udharna Datta Thakur's place, the temple is still there, and used to visit him as well, the temple. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asks in his Anubhashya, in the Bengali year 2083, AD 1876, a Babaji of the name Nitaya Dasa arranged for a donation of 12 bhigas of land, about 4 acres for the temple where Udharna Datta Thakur worshipped. The management of the temple later deteriorated. But then in 1306 AD, 1899, through the cooperation of the famous Balrama Malik of Hooghly, who was a sub-judge, and many rich Surna Vanik community members, the management of the temple improved greatly. Not more than 50 years ago, one of the family members of Udharna Datta Thakur named Jaga Mohan Dasa establish a wooden murti, statue of Udharna Datta Das Thakur in the temple. But that murti is no longer there. At present, a picture of Udharna Datta Thakur is worshipped. It is understood, however, that the wooden murti of Udharna Thakur was taken away by Shri Madana Mohan Datta and is now being worshipped with the Shaligram by Shri Nath Datta. Udharna Datta Thakur was the manager of the estate of a big Jamidar in Nahi Hatti, about 1.5 miles north of Katra. The relics of this royal family are still visible near the Denihatta station. Since Udharna Datta Thakur was the manager of the state, it was also known as Udharna Pura. Udharna Datta Thakur installed Nitya Gaur deities that were later brought to the house of Jamidar, which was known as Vanoya Yari Dhaba. Shri Udharna Datta Thakur remained a householder throughout his life. His father's name was Shri Khara Datta, his mother's name was Bhadravati, and his son's name was Shri Nivas Thakur. Hare Krishna. Haribo. So that's the verses we got from verse 31st to verse 41. And one of the pastime I heard regarding Udharna Thakur, even though a lot of details been given here by Srila Prabhupada ji on Udharna Datta Thakur. And again, those who have visited or who belong to that area might know, because the state is there, the relics are there, the places there, the deities are there, the temples are there. So many excuses we have to relive in the past, the glorious past of Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, Nityananda Prabhuji, and the disciples. But one of the pastime I heard that in the childhood, Nityananda Prabhuji used to enact like Krishna Lila or Ram Lila. And one of the fascinating pastime is when he played Lakshman. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, but in particular Nityananda Prabhuji, was playing the part of Lakshman, like the way we do Ram Lila. So the Ram Lila was happening. The kids were playing together. And Nityananda Prabhuji said, okay, I'm going to be the Lakshman. And that part of Ram Lila where Lakshman gets hurt, and because he was playing the part of Lakshman, he fainted. And he fainted realistically. And another boy, another Gopala, who was playing the role of Hanumanji. So he went to get Sanjeevani. And being the boys, he didn't come back because boys started playing something else. So Lord Nityananda, who was playing the part of Lakshman, didn't get up and he was still there. And the parents came along and parents said, what happened to the boy? Why is he not waking up? And they said, well, you got to do something. They asked the friends and friends came. Well, last time we remember, he just fell off because playing the part of Lakshman. And then Hanuman was supposed to bring it, but Hanuman didn't bring anything because Hanuman started playing something else. Someone said, oh, why don't we just finish that act? And then another boy had to act as Hanuman, bring the Sanjeevani and gave it to Lakshman. And then Lord Nityananda got up. And so that's one of the pastimes heard related to. Whether Udharna Dasa Thakur was there during that play, not sure, but he was very closely associated with Lord Nityananda. And then six-handed form is still there, it says, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji gave, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji revealed his six-handed forms to Sarva Bhauma Bhattacharya ji. And it's still there in Satyananda, where we can go and we can take darshans. So it's amazing when we read these pastimes, what these pastimes could do to our consciousness. So Hare Krishna, please forgive me, especially in pronouncing all those places, all those names, the verses, and feel free to correct me. As I said, I don't have any personal realization or reflections to most of the bits, because I haven't been there, or I haven't read a lot more in detail, which I could have, or maybe by your mercy, your blessings, I will in future. But feel free to correct me in anything. I'll open the floor for anyone to join if you would like. Anything anyone would like to share, please. It would be great to hear from everyone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much for the wonderful class, wonderful narration about the expansions of Lord Nityananda and the great devotees of Lord Nityananda. Definitely, as you said, by these narrations and all, our consciousness will get cleansed, and maybe one day we will get the mercy of Lord Nityananda and his devotees. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today, Ramananda Kanai Prabhu is not there. He is out of town because of his office work. So, any questions or comments are there regarding this session? VP Govinda Prabhu is ready to answer. Please, you can unmute and you can answer the questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for wonderful class. And for me, I'm first time hearing all this Nityanand Prabhu's pastime. So thank you so much for it. Prabhuji, in the class, you are telling that the Sakis basically they serve the prime Sakis, and they get satisfied. So how we can take this, Prabhu, that what we heard is we have one-to-one interaction with Lord in the spiritual world. So that's how we are always Sachit and Ananda. So we see in the material world, in the Bhautik Jagat also, Lord is present in everybody's heart. So how we can take this, Prabhu, how you will be in a blissful where you don't have any association of Lord or Radharani.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that question. That reminds me, I was born in Delhi, in India, and Delhi is a very populated place. Then I came down to London many years back, and London is very populated as well. And when I was reading in spiritually, when it says we have a spiritual world and we have material world. A spiritual world, material world is like just 1/3. Spiritual world is 2/3. And the very first thing came into my mind, something very similar what you said, that material world is only 1/3. And it's so populated, so much populated. Even on holidays, when we go and we spend time with our family, our parents, then it's hard to get their time, because maybe my elder brother's family members, they want to spend time, my own kids want to spend time. So if I would like to get my parents' time, it's very hard. It's very hard. Then I thought, but this is material world. Delhi, London, or any other places. I lived in Paris also. These places, they are so much populated. But we are saying that material world is only 1/3. When we will go to spiritual world, is 2/3, which means it's even more populated. So what will happen there? This question came into my mind, and I must admit, for few moments, few seconds, I was bewildered. I got so confused. I thought it's better to be in material world. At least you can get association of devotees. You never know, in a spiritual world, you will be able to see anyone or not because of the population. But then what we say, the phrase is the penny drops, which means the realization happened. And then, of course, when you read a lot, then you hear a lot. And then other senior Vaishnavas, they make you realize as well. So your realizations, not personal realizations, they come from other realizations as well. And then a lot, so there could be two different angles, perspectives to this answer. First one, if you see Krishna Leela, when Krishna came along, and Krishna is the only one who could do this, 16,108. And when Narad Muniji went there just to see how he's managing, right? How he's managing with all his wives, because in material world, it's hard to manage. And then he could see that Krishna is one of those who could, well, he's the only one who could get his own expansions, and everybody could see. Everybody, or all the wives could have personal Krishna, right? If in one respect, if you think about. So there is no conflict of interest that two wives need to share one Krishna. They have their own personal Krishna. That's one bit of it. That if we deserve Krishna, then Krishna could be there with us. It's not that only Radharani ji, only Sakhi, or only Manjari. If we deserve Krishna, then Krishna could be with us. And many devotees, and this is the second perspective, which I think is much more important for us. And I would like to thank you for you asking that question. The second bit is more important to us. Now, Prabhuji, you did say that this is all new to you, but I hope you are aware of the 10 offenses we do. In the 10 offenses, I really like the last sentence when we finish, and we say, this will help us to achieve the great thing. And then what it says, the aim and objective is Krishna Prema. Now, to be honest, the way I understand, our objective is not to achieve Krishna. Our objective is to achieve Krishna Prema.
Okay.
Right? If you think about it, the perspective is the consciousness. The perspective is to serve devotees in Krishna consciousness, right? If you think about ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada ji had to make that administrative ISKCON, and it's International Society of Krishna Consciousness. It's not International Society of Krishna. International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Now, if you think about, we always say that our Guru will take us to Krishna, right? And there is no doubt for it. Srila Prabhupada ji said, come and hold on to my dhoti, right? I will take you there. But think about it. Will our Guru Maharaj ji offer dirty flowers to Krishna? Or will offer clean flowers by a dirty plate to Krishna? Will offer impure, unclean food to Krishna? No, never, right? See, think about us. If our consciousness is not clean, do we really think that our Guru Maharaj will offer us to Radharani for Krishna? I am fully convinced, no. First of all, I can't go myself, that please, because I'm not clean. However, of course, with Guru's Kripa, with senior Vaishnav's mercy and association, we can get clean. And that might not take even a moment, as it says in Bhagavatam, that with the senior devotees association, even a moment is good enough. But until unless our consciousness is clean, we won't be able to. Now, coming back to the essence of the answer, that whether Manjuris are there, whether Sakhis are there, whether Radhaji is there, they all, or many other devotees all around, if you think of Goloka chart, and if you think about the lotus flower and different petals and different rasas there, if you think about it, then all of them, their focus is not on Krishna. The focus is on Krishna Prema. The focus is on devotional service. And devotional service is not always directly to Krishna, but it's through the devotees. So even if we are here in material world and we are serving the devotees, I would say it's as good as we are there in spiritual world and we are serving directly Krishna. Why? If we are, so somebody asked the question to someone, I think from Srila Prabhupada ji or maybe Guru Maharaj ji. Guru Maharaj ji actually narrated this in his pastimes. He said, so somebody said, well, what will happen if a materialistic will reach to a spiritual world? And Guru Maharaj ji said, well, if he will reach there, what will he do there? Let's say by mistake he will reach there, what will he do there? Because in a spiritual world, we are only supposed to do devotional service. If the person hasn't practiced devotional service here and reached there by accident, he will not appreciate devotional service. So that's the whole idea, that while here we practice devotional service, because when we will go to spiritual world, we will do devotional service. And as we know, devotional service is not always directly to Krishna. It's always for the devotees of Krishna. And that's why we are not the Das of Krishna. We are Dasanu, 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 Dasanu of Krishna. Prabhuji, does that help?
Yeah, sure.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Would like to add something, Prabhu.
Please, Mataji. Hare.
The reciprocation, personal reciprocation, Prabhu asked, na? The dealings and reciprocations of Lord, to understand the concept, it is very, very higher stage. Once we can come to the Bhava Bhakti, we can get understand very little, very minute portion. Brahma Samhita is saying, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabi Tabiriya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabi. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. So this concept and all, only we get to that position, only we could able to experience. For example, with our imperfect senses, if we want to understand, like one example already you gave, Krishna in Dwaraka with his 16,108 wives. The same example we understand when Rasalila takes place. Rasalila, thousands and lakhs of gopis are there in the Rasalila, and it goes on through Brahmaji's one night, it seems. Brahmaji's one night means, you just think, that is Sahasra Yuga Paryantam. The same time, the night time also, 12 hours, Brahmaji's 12 hours, that one. The same time, Brahmaji's night also same time. So this is inconceivable. Krishna's Achintya Shakti, the inconceivable Krishna, how he reciprocates, that is out of our capacity to understand. But we are reading in Krishna book and Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Rasalila platform, Krishna is reciprocating with each and everybody. And we read Radhashtami story also, the Goloka Mandala, Tala, the Mandala is ever increasing. So, yeah, how many, even though the one third portion, whoever living in the material world, they all get purified and they shifted to Goloka also, the Goloka Mandala is ever increasing. So, that is like everlasting. So, the each and individual reciprocations is due by Krishna Yoga Shakti, Yoga Maya, Krishna's Achintya Shakti. It is our out of our conceivable, Prabhu. Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji, for again additional explanation. But Mataji, it is my ignorance. Please give me a pardon to ask this. No. In this case, how we have fallen down, Mataji, from this place? It has been said that our main house is go back home, back to Godhead. So we were there. We don't know when we have come. So what it makes that we were doing devotional services and we fall down? How we made us separate then from Krishna? Even we were in. So this is the.
Prabhu, this is the one puzzle question even Srila Prabhupada answered very tricky. Srila Prabhupada answered in a manner, first when our house got catch fire, we should only think how to off the fire. We should not think how the fire was started or lit up. So the question, actually, Prabhu, His Grace Jagasakshi Prabhu also answered this question in very nice manner. Prabhuji answered this question. This reason, I think, we will understand only when we reach the spiritual world, it seems. When we reach the spiritual world, we can able to recollect all the janmas, all the births, all the whatever we have gone through, I think we will remember, it seems. So that's why this question we will understand only when we go there.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. This makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the association of all the wonderful devotees. So shall we end the session, Prabhu? Prabhu, please end the note, Prabhu. Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Say, Prabhu. Arunapati, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for your association, for your time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji ki jai, Nityananda Prabhu ki
Shri
jai,
Chaitanya
jai
Charitamrita
Krishna
ki jai.
ki jai, Samved Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev Maharaj ki jai, jai Jai Shri Ram. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, everyone. And
Thank
look
you
forward
so
to
much.
see you
We
next
all will-
Saturday. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
next
Then we
session,
can-
we all will see you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.